that.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I'd like to begin our conversation before we get into your work as an author, an educator, and parenting coach by asking you, right now we're on the 4-year anniversary. When we look at the calendar, there's probably PTSD bells that are going off.
Yes.
So, how did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
Um, well, at first, everybody thought, oh, this is going to be a 2-week problem. And so, at the time, I was executive directing a preschool I started 14 years ago. And so myself and the director was basically like, all right, well, I guess if kids' parents go to, these countries that are on this small little list, we'll have to tell them to be out of school for 10 days. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. That list started growing longer and longer. We started having to send out more and more emails to parents. No, you cannot. You can't. If you go to this place, that place, this place, that place. Basically, if you can't go anywhere. If you go anywhere, you're out of school for 10 days.
Yeah.
And then it just was sort of like whiplash. Um, one day kids had to bring in extra pairs of shoes because you could possibly bring COVID in on your sneakers. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, nah, you could just wear your regular shoes.
Yeah.
Then we had it was like, oh, spray down everything with this chemical to kill the COVID. But after a while, I'm like, we're just going to kill kids with these chemicals.
Yeah.
Preschool kids lick everything.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if licking Lysol is really good for them either. So it was a constant juggling of
Yeah.
of things for us in that world anyway. And then we shut down, like the world shut down. And then I kind of had a little bit of a break, which I sort of liked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I sort of felt like, wow, this is a gift. um i was we were fortunate enough as a family to all be together. My daughter was going to school in Los Angeles. She was going to college out there and they shut down, so she was on virtual at home. And my other daughter was in high school and she was still doing high school from her room, which wasn't ideal, but her high school was kind of a drive. So for me, I'm like, great, I don't have to drive 40 minutes round trip every day.
Yeah.
And I got to hike and paint and write. And, it was very tough for a lot of people. It was a horrible, horrible thing. And if you lost someone to COVID, um, it was horrible. But I'm blessed and I was very grateful that our situation was one of, gratitude for having that family time, being forced to do things that out of our comfort zone, like go for a hike because we had, watched everything on Netflix we possibly could watch. So we started playing pickleball. Um, and then, COVID ended and it was back to the grind. So,
Yeah, it was almost like a big adult staycation, so to speak. And I
right.
hear a lot of silver linings, and there's a lot of people that feel bad, like buyer's remorse, but I don't think it takes away from the woe. I just think that everything moves so fast. It's like
Right.
I'm always a big fan. I remember the first time the iPhone had the slow motion option, and I would film something like water spilling or something. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't see any of that. With my regular eye on the speed that it goes, I think sometimes we have to slow it all down. We have to pull
Yeah.
back and just appreciate. It's kind of like the whole adage of stop and smell the roses, so to speak. Like we move so fast all the time, constantly, that we're almost reactionary to everything around us.
Yes. And I see that so much with kids. Everything has to be this immediate gratification. And they miss out on so much. I feel like they miss out on the blessing of being bored. Like when we were kids and we were bored, we weren't plugging into anything. We were going out and playing kickball or, taking pillows off the couch and making a fort
Yep.
or, I remember going outside with my brother in our backyard. I mean, it was a small yard, but it was like, oh, we're out in, the wilderness and we have to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had like, you have the vent that like would spray out the hot air when you have a washing machine and the
Yep.
dryer going, and be
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, quick, let's go by the fire. Like these silly little imagination things that you do when you're a kid. And now kids don't do any of that. It's
No.
like, I want my iPhone, I want my iPad, I want my TV.
Yep. Which if the power goes out or the Wi-Fi doesn't work,
Yeah.
it's panic time. So let me ask you that, it's interesting. I work in IT for a school district, so I've been very close to watching this from an educational standpoint. My wife's a fifth grade teacher, and I mean, all these kids got truncated for like 3 years, 3 years. Like,
Yeah.
the emotional stunting, the catching up, the way that the world's changed. There's just so much more that's going on right now. And I don't know if they're going to be able to catch up. And does that
I
even matter?
know. Yeah, well, we were seeing that, we'd start kids before the pandemic at 18 months. And that's when they're really just kind of becoming aware of themselves as little humans. And then they go through the years and everything's fine. And now we'll have kids that are 3 years old, but they are functioning like an 18-month-old because they have been inside, they have been sheltered, they haven't had any, you know, academics, they haven't had any emotional, time, social emotional experiences because they've been so sheltered and kept inside for so long. And a parent might say to us, oh, well, they're 3, so I want to skip the 18-month and the 2.5-year-old class. I don't want to go to the 3-year-old class. And we say, yeah, age wise, they're 3, but socially and emotionally and academically, they're 2. And so we had to put a policy in place that said if they have not been in any preschool program before coming to us, then they have to start in the 2s, because there's that space of learning and knowledge that it is hard to catch up. And why should a kid have to play catch up for their whole life? Just
Yeah.
do it now.
Hmm.
No one's gonna bully that. No 3-year-old's gonna bully a 2-year-old,
No,
oh, you're in the 2s class.
no.
But if you don't if you don't fix it now, then when they're in 5th grade, they're going to be struggling.
Yeah,
And why?
for
I
sure.
think.
So let me ask you this. There's so many things that go into who you are and what you do. But if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders, it's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I might need another hour to think about that.
We'll come back.
Yeah, I think I'd probably say I'm a teacher. If I was talking to 3rd graders, I'm a teacher and I'm a writer.
Okay.
I would say those are my 2 things that for them to understand
Yeah.
anyway.
So what did you want to be when you were in that same seat as a third grader?
Oh, as a 3rd grader, I wanted to be an international banker.
Oh, good for you. That's very James Bond kind of thing.
Yes. Yes. And, learning that I was terrible in math, that quickly, went by the
Yeah,
wayside.
that'll do it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration that's helped you grow in your life?
Well, I mean, probably a lot of people say this, but when I think about my heroes growing up, I'd have to say Mr. Rogers. I know that sounds kind of cliche,
No,
but
that's the perfect guy.
he's just was everything. I mean, when when I was a kid, my parents could put me in front of the television, in front of, you know, his show, and not be worried that something was going to be on that show that was going to hurt me or damage me or make me scared, or like it was a babysitter almost. He was like safe time. And, as I grew up, he became the person that I'd wanted my children to watch. Um, And, and then when 9/11 happened and he came out of retirement to just talk about the helpers, bad things happen, but look at all the helpers. I mean, he was just such an inspiration to me about character education, treating people with respect, being the kind of person that you want other people to be. And so I'd say he's kind of like my hero. And it's funny because he went to Rollins College, and my daughter's first choice for college was Rollins College. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to go to the school where Mr. Rogers went. And she was like, who's Mr. Rogers? She's like, I just know they have a really nice pool.
So did he.
Yeah.
The thing that's so good about someone like that in this whole Me Too world we live in is that he was totally unscathed. What he
Yeah.
did was real, And I think that's the
Yeah.
hardest thing about being an adult right now in this world is that we're seeing all these people like Bill Cosby and all these other people. It's like, man, these guys were so good for so long. But
Yeah.
Fred was the real deal. Like, so
Yeah.
was Bob Ross. So were a lot of
Yes.
these other people.
Yeah.
So it's
And
I
it,
did
yeah.
yeah, I did interview a guy at one point that got to interview and hang out at his house. And he said it was one of the more transformative moments of his entire life. And Fred was very specific about like allowing kids to feel things, to feel disappointment, to feel things, not give them the stark reality that adults have to ingest all the time,
Right.
but give them a level of like, don't pull the wool over. Just let them feel, let them understand that there's deep emotions. And he was just such a child psychologist. He just had it down because that is like preschool and kindergarten. Everything that we ever needed to learn, we should do in kindergarten. They shouldn't have
Right.
master's degrees and doctorate programs. They should have a kindergarten program for
Right.
adults to go back
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, it amazes me all the time when parents will come in and they'll say, my child's so rude, or, and they'll say, well, and I know the parent and I know why the child's rude. It's because you're rude. The parent's rude. Like people don't, they don't set examples. I call it trickle down education.
yeah.
Like you learned in kindergarten, like you were saying, to be nice, to be kind, to share, to care about people. And then somehow, as we get older, it just becomes this race to be the best. And we kind of forget about all those kindnesses.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating and you could spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I've probably thought about this a million times when we have play those games at dinner parties, and that's a question, but it's
Yeah.
usually a dead person.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It would be Mr. Rogers.
Yeah,
So,
right. Right. A live person. I don't know. I have to say, politicians forget it. They've all disappointed me. So
yeah,
it's not going to be any of those
I
people.
agree.
Um, Most leaders have disappointed me in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Um, who would it be? Who would it be? That's a really good question.
We
It's
can come back
sad.
to it. Well,
Yeah, it's sad that I can't think of someone. It would probably be maybe Jerry Seinfeld.
yeah, that would be fun.
you
Seinfeld would
know,
be fun.
because he's funny.
Yeah.
Or you know what? No, I know who it would be. It'd be Steve Carell. Steve
Yeah.
Carell.
I just started
Yeah.
watching the morning show. Have you seen that?
Yes. He
Yeah.
is amazing in
I
that.
know. And the thing
Yeah.
that blows me away about watching Steve Carell is that I remember when The Daily Show started and he was just a
Yeah.
correspondent, you know,
Yes.
right? So you're just
Yeah.
like, wait, hold on a second. This was just this goofy guy
Yeah. He's
throwing all these
amazing.
comedic lobs out all the time. And now he's this serious actor crying in a
Yeah.
dramatic series. How did this happen? But
I don't know. He's so good. And I just think as a person, he's so interesting.
yeah,
The way, like you said, he can play everything.
yeah.
And he also, he grew up, I believe, in New Hampshire, and he found out from his sister, who still lives there, that the general store that he loved as a kid was going up for sale. So he bought it.
Wow.
and now his sister runs it. And whenever he's off, he works at the general store.
Good for him. See,
So
that's
I
it.
like that. He's like
Yeah.
real, he's down to earth, he's funny. Um, so far he hasn't taken any positions that are annoying or bother me.
Right. Yeah. That what an interesting thing. I'm so glad you told me that. I had no idea. But it seems like
Yeah.
something that's in his wheelhouse. He's that kind of dude.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this. Every day you wake up, what is the motivation for you to not only to be a teacher and to write and to help others, but to also evolve as a human yourself? What is that motivation for you?
Right. Well, I think I have two girls. Um, and I think I always say, you have to be the role model for them. And so what you do, hopefully they'll emulate, or they're going to be proud of you, and they're going to want to work hard too. There's days when you don't want to get out of bed because things happen and you're depressed or sad or frustrated. But you can't, I don't want to let my girls see that. Like, you just have to forge forward and show them, like, things happen in life, but you have to be resilient. You have to show them resilience. You have to show them that you're a hard worker. You have to show them that you can be a positive person. Um, and I say positive, being positive is like going to the gym. It's really hard. You have to work on it because this world is a tough place.
Yeah.
So, I was just talking to my daughter yesterday, and I said, being, because she's in college and it's hard. And I said, you have, just like you go to the gym for your abs, you have to work on positive self-talk to your brain and try it every single day, until it becomes a habit. Because just like eating well, positive self-talk is also a habit, and you have to work on that. So I think that's what motivates me most, just being a good mom and a supportive partner to my husband as well. I think that's probably it.
Our brains are the biggest muscle in our body. I know it's cliche, but it really is true. And we only use 10 to 15% of it. So there's room to grow all the
Right.
time, for sure. So
And some people probably only use 5% of it.
that's what I'm saying. And we know who those are. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. You have to dispense good advice as an educator, but what's the
Right.
best advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh, the best advice I ever gotten was, I was going to say, I thought I saw it over here, but
Yeah.
you can, you can't change the direction of the wind, but you can change the direction of your sails.
Yeah.
That a good friend of mine gave me that advice, and I've always thought of that, saying to my girls or to people I coach or people I'm talking to, that, things might be going in one direction, but you can change how you react to it. You can change how you respond to things. You can change your way of looking at things. It doesn't have to be, you know, just because someone says it's this doesn't mean that's the way it has to be. You can change things. Even people who say, oh, I went to a fortune teller and they told me this is going to happen in my life. I'm like, that's great. But now that you know that, if you don't want that to happen, change your behaviors, change what you do, change where you go, change, your education, change how you think about things. That's pretty much, I think that's probably the best advice that I've gotten. And then there's one other piece of advice someone said that, it only takes one person to change the world,
Yep.
which I think is mind blowing in a way.
Both of those sound very much like Fred Rogerisms.
They are very Fred Rogery.
Fred Roger. My son's on the autism spectrum, and my whole life he's been going through therapies and he's been going through all of these different levels of helping him on his developmental curve. And I realized that there's no way that we can control any of this. It's like COVID. The only thing that we can
Right.
control as parents and even educators is like how we love, how we dispense the way that we feel about these other humans. And again, another Fred thing, it's just a part of taking care of each other, because you just can't control things. There's just things that are literally out of our bounds, but
Right.
but you can change things the way that, we perceive it and how we react to it. So I'm curious, of all of these things that you've done in your life and all of these ways that you've evolved and overcome yourself, what are you the proudest of?
I think I'm proudest of the school that I created, because I am now at a time where I can see, um, how the very first student ha has evolved through high school. And I now have this sort of longitudinal outlook where I can look at the kids that came in at age 2 at the time and where are they now? And it's, I don't know every single child. I don't know in terms of their history or where they've ended up, but there is a pretty big group of that was like the first class that came in, and they're all still friends. They're all in shows together. They're all in high school together. They all go to parties together. They hang out together. The parents are still friends. And I feel like that's my biggest accomplishment, giving kids a place where they could have a positive experience in early childhood, which I think is so important. And then just seeing that how everything we taught them about being kind and being caring and embracing public speaking and all of those things and loving the sciences have carried through.
Yeah.
And I feel good about that,
Yeah.
I think.
That's great. My wife, we actually just last year went to a wedding. She had a student in the fifth grade and she got married and invited her. And there was other kids that remembered her and said, I remember when you used to read to us and all of those things. It's such a cool thing. It's like most people only experience that through some real epic movie of,
Right.
the beginning, the middle, the
Yeah.
end, that kind of a thing. But when you get to live that as an educator, you get to see that because, in the regular company world, most of the time, people just kind of move on and move away unless you make friendships. But there's something
Right.
that's more glue. There's more glue when you're an educator to see all that happen.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because when I first had this idea for school, um, a mom called me and said, I love what you're doing. I love this concept. I love that you want to bring in character ed and STEM. And I really want my child to be part of this. And I said, well, we don't have our CO yet. We're not even open. It's going to be like a few months. So she said, can I meet you at the Starbucks? Because I really want to talk about this. So I met her at the Starbucks and she was really sweet. And her daughter is actually on the cover of my book. That's her daughter when she was in our school at 2 years old. And she was my first check, like for enrollment. And I said to my husband, I'm probably going to have to give her this check back because I'm probably not going to get any more.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. Is it going to happen? It's a new business. We'll see what happens. So 14 years later, two years ago, I stepped out as executive director and started writing children's television. And I said to my husband, you need to replace me because he's in recruitment. That's his world. And who is now our head of school? That mom.
Wow.
Our very first mom is now running the school.
Wow.
Which is
That's
pretty
cool.
amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild how things work out. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your
Right.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Uh, I think I probably do run the show.
Good answer. See?
I'm kind of a micromanaging kind of mom and
Yeah.
person. I always want to have my hands in everything. My kids will probably say, she texts me 47,000 times a day. I have everybody on. Where's my iPhone? Before I go to sleep at night, I make sure that my daughter's little circle is on her apartment and the other ones is in her dorm room and my parents are in their house.
Yeah.
So, I'm always checking the security cameras at the school, make sure everything's okay. I think, I'm a little like the Oz, try to be
You're
a
the
little bit,
marionette.
yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
of the puppeteer, puppet
Yeah.
master. Um, and but I'm not a micromanager in terms of being a boss. I feel like you need to give people latitude and leeway to be creative. I've
Yeah.
never been that type of person. I think teachers have the best ideas, not directors.
Yeah.
And so, you need to give teachers the opportunity to explore. And, one of our classrooms has a cave in it. You can literally go into the cave. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but it's amazing. So,
Yeah.
of course, we want you to make a cave. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like I just think that that's important too, giving
Yeah.
people latitude to be successful and be creative. But I am a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's all good. Keeps everything together. So if anyone wants to get your books, they want to hire you, they want to learn more about you, reach out, all the good business, what do they do?
Yeah. So if they're interested in the Parents Pocket Guide to Surviving the Preschool Years, they can find that on Amazon. And if they're interested in parent coaching, one-on-one parent coaching with me, they can go to daniellelindner.com. It's DanielleLindner.com, and they can book a free consultation right on there.
Excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so
This
much.
is so
Great to
fun.
meet you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks
great
for
day.
having